Hello, Singapore. I'm glad to be here from Japan. It's really hot here today. Outside and shower. Okay, so first let me introduce myself. I've been evangelizing quantum key distribution, or QKD, since 2018, a few years ago, when Toshiba set the course to promote commercializing its QKD technologies. So I don't know how this physics works, but I'm really trying to push commercializing it. So I want to spend several minutes explaining our vision of quantum economy and why momentum for this realization of it is building and incredible pace. This momentum will benefit many sectors of our economy. But with all the previous benefit of quantum computing comes a negative threat, and I'll explain the threat and time scale of it. Okay, this is a few notice. Corporate require. Okay, so the future will be defined by quantum computers and quantum economies. To quote a Nobel Prize winning physicist, quantum computer are more different to the current computer than current computer are from the abacus. So quantum computer is not natural extension of the Moore's law. Quantum computer is a completely new kind of technology that will fundamentally change our economy and our society. And most importantly for today, so fundamentally change the security and the encryption landscape. So quantum computers are coming sooner than you think. According to the Gartner, 40% of the large corporations are planning to create an initiative around the quantum computer by 2025, very soon. Okay, I foresee huge potential of the quantum economy. It should be greater than digital economy of today. So government, financial sectors, healthcare, telecommunication, utility infrastructures, and consumer markets will require fast, secure, and reliable transaction of the data to run the economies. But against this backdrop, the rise of supercomputing will challenge the security of the existing encryption, exposing vulnerabilities and the security risk in the data-driven world today. So quantum technology has reached a number of the critical milestones a decade ahead of the schedule. In the last 80s, for example, many researchers said the basic building block of the quantum computing, the qubit, would arrive 100 years later. But actually, 10 years later, it arrived. So last year, IBM announced a new 127 qubit Eagle processor, and now promised 1,000 qubit computers by 2023, next year. So Google has planned to launch its quantum computer by 2029. Microsoft has announced new kind of quantum qubit. Amazon already announced opening of the AWS Center for Quantum Computing. So you may think you can afford to wait and see, to postpone investing into the quantum cryptography. But we fundamentally think that could be a mistake for two reasons. So first, some technologies are developed steadily, but many emerges as breakthrough defying any timeline could have been predicted. Second, harvest and decrypt risk for critical data today. Also, many types of the information must stay confidential for several years, and even for several decades. However, long-term confidentiality is already threatened by harvest and decrypt attack today. So because it's easy to collect and store the encrypted data now, and it is possible to decrypt those data later when more powerful computers available in not far in the future. That's why new techniques are needed today for long-term data confidentiality. So much of today's cryptography is based on hard computational problems. The security relies on the fact that it takes a long time to solve those problems. However, quantum computers is able to solve those problems efficiently. As a consequence, new crypto techniques, which can't be broken by quantum computer, are needed. And that is a QKD. And the QKD technology is fundamentally quantum safe network everyone can rely on. And 30 years ago, Toshiba had the vision of where quantum pack might be. So Toshiba has invested and researched QKD technologies for over the past 3 decades in a research lab in Cambridge of England. And then we are now ranked #1 in the world for the QKD-related patent, and have demonstrated QKD technologies and use cases with partners in Japan, UK, US, South Korea, and soon in Singapore. And billions of dollars have spent in R&D in the field of trial for the QKD technologies, systems, network globally in the past couple of decades. And Toshiba has invested tens of millions of dollars in R&D to date in UK and Japan. And our achievement, including realizing the world's fastest and the farthest key distribution in a real-world environment. We are proud of this heritage in our groundbreaking quantum technologies with a collaboration and investment from BT and the UK. We have successfully navigated a long journey to throughout the research to the now reality. So several weeks ago, on 26 April in London, BT and Toshiba has launched Quantum Secure Metal Network commercial trial, which is about what we are enabling today and how it can be protect the private and public sectors from the threat of cyber security today. So that marks one of the most significant commercial milestone in our journey toward future quantum economy. The delivery of this quantum safe network. We thank BT for their commercial vision and the long-term and trusted partnership. And the Toshiba is also on the move with the KT of South Korea toward commercializing QKD as a service. for the end user in South Korea. So KT and Toshiba is going to launch its open QKD service testbed for the early adapter in this summer. This is another evident path to commercialize the QKD technology in addition to the London Quantum Secure Metro Network service trial with BT. And the Korean telecommunication industry has been, and also is very aggressively moving towards the QKD technologies for the recent years. As seen, the KT has developed its own QKD systems for the local ecosystem partners and manufactured and experienced on the QKD application with us these days. And looking at the vertical market, financial industry has been and is expected to be one of the early adapter of quantum technologies. And our CEO, Shimada-san, and I have met chief information officers or chief security officers of the world's leading financial enterprise in New York City, London, Tokyo, for the last couple of years. And we are investing a lot of, they're investing a lot in the quantum computers and quantum technologies to develop the financial services. Then, we believe the quantum technology is going to be, will be applied in the other business in the foreseeable future. So this is one of the tangible examples that financial industry has put ready, getting ready to apply the quantum technologies. So as you can see, the last one, JP Morgan has worked with us to demonstrate the practical application of the QKD to secure blockchain. We continue to work with them to excite the field trial toward actual deployment. And with Toshiba, I remain committed to invest in the QKD technologies, products, and businesses, and our journey continue. And thank you for your attention and listen to me today. And now I'd like to pass my spot to Chunyang, CEO of Spectra, a business partner for the Singapore and Southeast Asia.
Thank you. Thank you, Jima-san, for highlighting the various use cases and trials and deployments around the world. So just by way of introduction, my name is Chunyang. I'm CEO at Spectral. So within Singapore, we have partnered with Toshiba to explore the market development of QKD use cases and deployments around in Singapore and around the region. So today, I'm going to share a little bit about what we think or what we see the future next few years of QKD deployment and the technology would head towards to. We've observed a lot of, metropolitan QKD networks being set up around the world. For example, in Singapore, we heard a lot about the National Quantum Safe Network. In Europe, we have the Quantum Communication Infrastructure. The US has various deployments such as Chicago Quantum Exchange and other, use case deployments by telecom operators and so on. And the question we really ask ourselves is, where are the data flows today? Right, within Singapore, obviously there's a lot of data flows between a bank and the data centers, between two government agencies, for example. But, we live in a hyper-connected global community today. And it's hard to envision that a banking system can exist without international connectivity. Any of the transactions or trades, even Zoom calls, I'm sure, the past 2 years, we've been on numerous Zoom calls with counterparts around the world, touching on, various, to the various other verticals in the telecoms industry, data centers. The data flows goes around the world. And the question we ask ourselves is, once these local metropolitan networks are ready, what happens next, right? And what needs to be done now to prepare for that state? And we think that that stage will come very, very soon, within the next 3 to 4 years or so. And so that's where we are concentrated on. Spectral is, we have our core technology in space-based quantum key distribution technology, or quantum communications technology in general. Okay, so at Spectral, we really focus on two things. For fiber-based QKD, we have partnered with Toshiba. We think that this is a very important segment to catalyze. Right, we have already seen a lot of deployments currently happening, and for us, we are focusing on trying to develop the long distance or intercontinental market. All right, so I'll share a little bit with you the plans we have on the satellite side today. So by way of introduction, Spectral is a spin-off company from the Center for Quantum Technologies. We've benefited tremendously from the R&D that has taken place over the last decade or so. Right, from you see on the picture on the left, is a balloon experiments to CubeSat size demonstrators in space. There's two key things that CQT has done and we've benefited from. One is the miniaturization of the quantum device or quantum light sources. See the bottom left picture. This is a desktop size demonstration of a quantum entanglement, miniaturizing to a 20 by 10 centimeter payload, and then making it rugged enough to withstand the space environment. So the latest experiment that was very successful was Spooky one that we demonstrated a quantum entanglement device in space. And right now, as a company, we are building Spectral One, which is slated to be launched in 2024. So here, just a bit of visualization. So Spectral One is slated to be launched into the Sun synchronous orbit, and the choice for this orbit is because it goes around the Earth for roughly 16 times a day, and the key thing to notice that if it passes over Singapore at 12 midnight, this orbit would allow the satellite to pass over Singapore at 12 midnight every day of the year. And so by the choice of this orbit, a single satellite would be able to cover the entire Earth and allow us to serve users all over the world. Right, as we go forward, there would be other orbital designs that can better optimize for where the user locations are. But this, as a first satellite, as a commercial service demonstrator, we think is the most ideal. Now, quantum technologies, to enable that satellite-based QKD to happen, we don't, develop in isolation. We rely on a lot of partners, but the core to Spectral is really the quantum kind of hardware and software, which we think is the brain, behind the systems at the end of the day. So on the quantum payload, on the space segment, and the ground receiver, that's what we take in-house, developing within the company and building the capabilities and talent to do that. But beyond that, the satellite bus, the rocket launches, there's a parallel. I think if you see some of the other conferences, there's a parallel kind of new space industry developing in tandem with quantum technology. And that's what we're leveraging on a lot, right? Faster iterations of design and testing, and cheaper cost of launch to get into space that would drive business models going forward. And then on the ground segment, obviously control telemetry and control of the satellite. Okay. And really, I think as we go along, in terms of satellite-based QKD, it's a relatively new concept for a lot of people, the wider industry at stake as well. There have been a lot of demonstrations and trials on fiber-based QKD already, so I think generally we're more familiar with that. So the question again then, how would satellite-based QKD plug into the whole entire QKD ecosystem? From what we see, there's really kind of two major kind of buckets, right? The first on the left, we call it direct-to-user sites. So for users or organizations who are slightly more sophisticated, they want to touch the hardware, they can build and deploy a quantum optical receiver on their premises, either on the rooftop or within the secured site. And there are a lot of those users out there. We recommend direct to user configuration, where it's a purpose-built quantum optical receiver on their site to directly receive keys to the various locations around the world. So this has implications for major data centers around the world, banking systems, government premises, defense premises, and so on. And the other bucket, we term it, as a global quantum network. That's the picture on the right. So the first slide that I show, we think that local networks will be deployed over time. And what we want to do is have a quantum optical ground station as one of the nodes in a local network, right? And through the satellite link, that should connect a local network in Singapore to a local network in UK or New York and so on, right? So, for example, there's a bank in Singapore, as identified there. Through that local network and through the optical ground station in Singapore, and vast spectral one can be connected to the banking counterpart in UK and New York. So that's the kind of broad concepts. Obviously, if you've seen it, the network configuration requires a lot of parties to come together, either telcos, the various encryptor providers, various QKD systems providers, various government initiatives as well, to come together to stitch together this network configuration on a global context. That's why relying on overseas partners is an important pillar for us. And with this, I think I'll kind of just wrap up and end off. Locally here in Singapore, we are concentrated on developing the market, education also for the wider industry to catalyze the adoption. And we observed, essentially the same user base for fiber-based QKD. We have already also observed they'll naturally ask the next question, right? How do I communicate or secure my communication with quantum, with my counterparts in other parts of the world? And with that, we have a strong focus on developing Spectral One. This is slated to launch again in 2024. And with this, we're relying on partners. Just as an example, we are heavily supported by the Office for Space Technology in Singapore, who has signed an MOU with the European Space Agency. So under this intergovernmental handshake, so to say, we'll be providing a link between Europe to Singapore with a consortium of partners in Europe. And going forward, right now, we have internal plans to roll out a global network or global partnership of ground station partners and users. And we welcome, parties here or colleagues here who has interest to come and contact us and discuss further collaboration. Lastly, I just want to give a quick point of acknowledgement. CQT having done a lot of the pioneering R&D that help us form the foundation of our IP core. Zora Innovation, lead investor for the last round, which is a deep science investment platform of Temasek Holdings, giving us the financial kind of visibility and into the future. Austin obviously supporting the Spectral One mission, and last but not least, Toshiba, our partner, to realize market development in Singapore and also partnering around the world going forward. With this, I guess I'd end the presentation proper, and I guess we have about 2 minutes for any questions that can come up. Yes, please.
Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen, for really interesting presentation. So I have a question for you, sir. In regards to this satellite-based QKD that you're talking about, I wanted to understand what is your view, your perspective on commercialization. So yesterday when I was in this room talking and listening to presentations from other companies and people, experts in quantum computing, they all talked about availability, commercialization 5 to 7 years from now. The gentleman from Japan had some numbers in there which were a little bit earlier. So, actually about the same. So 2029, that's also 5 to 7 years from now. what is your perspective on this sort of thing being, actually being used commercially in terms of time frame? Thank you.
Yes, I think satellite-based QKD deployment and commercialization would follow very closely the deployment of local quantum networks. I would say it's probably one step or half a step later, right? Because you need to have a critical mass.
So the bank there has to have QC on its premises before it can do this, right?
Not necessarily quantum QC as in quantum computing. Not necessarily quantum computers. It needs to. So QKD is a kind of a cybersecurity or key distribution primitive, right? So
it can work with classical computing, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So it's kind of separate from the computing layer. Is to have those secure encryption keys to protect data flows between two locations. So we track the satellite-based QKD commercialization would track closely the fiber-based deployment. However, we do see specific cases where there's already a strong impetus to protect very valuable or sensitive information, adopting in the kind of configuration on the left side. There's a direct to premise, but again, these are slightly more sophisticated users.
So, what's your prediction on the time frame?
Right, I would say the 3 to 5 year time frame is the technology demonstration phase. We're still at that stage. Even within this phase, we think there will be some users on the left side. And then so for the kind of mesh network or global network, there'll be the 5, 7, 9 year time frame. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right. This.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for an amazing presentation.